Closet Case have released a new pattern, the Sienna Maker Jacket, and they're now releasing patterns up to a size 30, which is fantastic news. I spent the last week making mine, which I'm wearing now, and today I'm going to give you a review of my experience using this pattern, and if you stay to the end there'll be 6 tips and tricks for embarking on such a pattern yourself. Hi guys, welcome back. If we're just meeting, my name's Claire. On this channel I bring plus size dressmaking videos to you. It's my aim to help you increase your confidence in sewing no matter what shape or size you are. So if that interests you, do hit the subscribe button below because I bring videos to you once to twice per week. So the Sienna Maker Jacket was released a couple of weeks ago now, and as soon as I saw it, I absolutely fell in love with it. So I contacted Closet Case Patterns and asked them would they consider giving me a complimentary pattern for free in exchange for a review on the pattern once I'd made it. So this is a disclaimer just to let you know that I have been given this pattern for the purposes of reviewing it. But as always, you guys know, if you've been watching me for any length of time, you know I will give a very honest opinion and review. So do stay tuned. So let's get on with the video, and if you stay to the end, I've got 6 top tips that will help you make your jacket. So a little bit about the company. Closet Case have been around for quite a while now, probably as long as I've been sewing, which is 5 years. Might have been just after I started sewing or around the same time, but I remember finding them really early in my sewing career. I absolutely loved their aesthetic from the off. In the past, I've bought the Claire coat, the Kellyanna rack and the Carolyn pyjamas, so I am a big fan of Closet Case. However, I was a little frustrated that they only went up to a US size 20 because I'm probably around US 24, and so it was just a little bit out of my size range. I was initially grading patterns up, but then I came to the position where I didn't feel I needed to grade patterns up anymore because more and more companies are becoming plus size. So I'm over the moon now to hear that Closet Case are testing for up to size 30. The Sienna Maker Jacket is, according to their website, a chic utility jacket inspired by vintage French workwear. It works both as a hardware and outer piece and something artisans can wear around the studio for functionality. It features 3 lengths with 2 designs. View A and B are longer than view C. They have deep hip pockets, a hidden breast pocket, and can be cinched in with a belt and a D-ring. View C is a shorter, boxier jacket with button closures, a back vent, and an interesting sleeve pocket, which you'll see on my make, as that is the view that I have made. The jacket comes unlined, as you can see here, and it has a facing that is part of the lapel, but I will go into details on the facing a little bit later. For reference, my measurements are 49, 46, 56, and the pattern's largest size is 54, 51, 56. So for me there is plenty of room, and it is a much better size range than they had previously done. So according to their pattern measurements, I come in at a 22 at the bust and a 26 at the waist and the hip. I did look at the finish measurements, but I decided to play it safe even though there was plenty of ease in this jacket. I am fairly new to making jackets, so I wanted to play it safe, so I did just go with the pattern recommendations. So I graded between a 22 at the bust and a 26 at the hips, making this jacket a little bit more A-lined than it would otherwise be. So I've made my main one up in a twill. This is quite a heavyweight twill, but I would probably make it up again in something with a bit more drape, as the excess here could do with more drape, but anything really midweight and upwards. It really depends on the look you're going for. If you're going for a coat, then you'll want something more heavyweight. Any material that you would make a coat with would work. You could use cord, you could use waxed fabric. Whatever you would use to make a coat, you could make this in and make it a coat or a jacket coat, so to speak. or if you just wanted to wear it as a topper, you could have it as something a little bit more lightweight. I wouldn't go lightweight, so to speak. I'd only go medium weight. So you don't want chiffon or georgette or anything like that, or even cotton lawn. I don't think that would work with this pattern, but anything midweight and upwards should do. So in terms of printing off the pattern and tracing, I had mine printed off A0. That's my preference for printing off patterns. So I sent mine away, it came back, and then I traced off all the pieces. As I was tracing them off, I did make some adaptations that I knew from the off that I needed to make. I bought the shoulder in by 1 inch, and that is a normal alteration that I would make on most patterns, to be honest. And I graded between the 22 and the 26 on the side seam. And while I was tracing off initially, that's all the changes I made. So first off, I wanted to make a toile, just a quick toile with the main pieces, the front, the back, one sleeve and the collar, just to have a look for fit. So I have filmed some footage, so I'll take you over there now. Right, so I've made a toile of the Sienna Maker Jacket. So there's the collar, so I'm happy with the collar. I actually took the shoulder seam in by 1 inch before I cut the toile. So I'm happy with that because the description is it's a slight dropped shoulder. So if you look here, I've got a dart. I've got a dart there. Is that called a French dart, I think? So I've got a dart from there to there, but my bust is here, so way too high. So I've measured that to be 2.5 inches high. So I have now changed that on my pattern piece. So I'll bring that dart down. So I'm not sure I've even done this sleeve right, to be honest, because in the actual pattern it has a pocket and I haven't put the pocket in, but I folded it over to mimic that. So it's a little bit tight around here, not massively, because you can see there is some room, but when I go like that, it's really tight here. So the seam is 5/8 of an inch, so I'm just going to sew the sleeve at 3/8. Because it's a two-piece sleeve, there are two seams. There's one there and one there. If I just sew them at 3/8, I think that would give me enough room to manoeuvre. I've just pinned the back together. It's actually the pattern design that's got a flap, which I obviously haven't done for the 12, so I've just pinned it together. Now when I traced my pattern piece, I did a size 22 here and I graded out to a 26 here. I don't know if it's got a little bit too much like drape there, but this is a cotton and I will be making it up in a toile. So I'm actually going to just leave it and see how it looks on my final make. So overall, I'm really happy. So the changes I'm making is I've brought the shoulder seam in by 1 inch. I'm going to bring the darts down by 2.5 inches. And I'm going to reduce the seam allowance on the sleeve a bit. Here's my pattern piece. I've drawn a rectangle around the dart and then just shifted it down. There is a tutorial on my channel which I will link above, there or there, and so you can find out how to do that by looking at that video, because it is dedicated to this specific technique. But yeah, I've just moved that down 2.5 inches. So that's it, let's get on with making the real thing now. Let's talk a bit about construction. The first thing I did was to attach the pockets. Now I wanted to get the pockets exactly right. To be honest, I don't normally attach pockets, but because it's a jacket, I wanted to. And also the pockets were a main feature of the jacket, and I didn't want to miss out on that. I did forego the breast pocket, I didn't add that in, but I did add the 2 hip pockets. So there's 2 things that I did that really help with the accuracy of the pockets and help them to help to make them look as good as they do, and that is I did a guiding stitch, which I've never done that before, but that really helped, because when you've got a guiding stitch you can actually fold the fabric on the stitch and the fabric kind of folds itself. And the other thing I did was to baste my pockets in place before I sewed them down, and I basted them by hand. So constructing the pockets was super easy. I made sure to transfer the markings from the pattern over to the fabric exactly as was instructed, and that really helped as well. It was at this point I realised that the fabric pen that I was using, the friction pen, was actually staining my fabric. Thank God I'd only used it in the seam allowance. But I will just say, test your pens. If you're going to use pens on your fabric and you believe that they will iron off, do test it out before you use it on your proper piece. The next thing I did was I construct the sleeve pockets. Now this is a really unique feature that I haven't actually seen on another pattern. You may have. Do leave me a comment below if you've seen this elsewhere, but I've not seen it anywhere. And let me show you it. There it is. I've got a button on there now. I've got a lining in there, and it goes fairly deep. It goes to about there. Put my phone in there. So you can't see it if I've got my phone in there. It's not that comfortable with my phone in there, to be honest. But you could lay it down that way as well, which you can see it through the... But again, you know, it's not really a pocket you'd want to put your phone in, but if you had nowhere else to put it, you could do. The pocket was super simple to pull it together. It's a bit hard to explain, and you do need to read the instructions, but it's basically, you've got the upper sleeve fabric at one end, the lower sleeve fabric at the other end, and the lining fabric in the middle, and it's all about the way you fold it up. I really love this feature of the pocket. It's so unique, as I've said before, but it's not that functional, I don't think, because as you saw when I put my phone in it just now, it was a bit, well, there wasn't really enough room to move about with my phone in there. It was a little bit uncomfortable. I can imagine if you had your keys in there or something like that, that would be uncomfortable as well. So I don't think the pocket is that functional, but it does look really good. It's a really nice feature to look at, but not for use. So if I was making this again, I probably wouldn't use this sleeve, and that is just for that reason. I would just use a plain sleeve next time, but it certainly adds to the look of the jacket. So the next thing I did was the back vent, and let me see if I can show you. I've got, as you can see, I've got buttons there. There's my back vent. You can see that I've got the buttons on there and buttonholes on there. I'll talk about buttonholes a bit later. I think I personally found the vent a little bit more difficult than I was expecting to, if I'm honest, but I know why that was. So I was looking at multiple resources in order to do this. I was looking at the instructions and videos on YouTube, and I was getting confused by left and right because the way it shows up on the screen. I did follow some videos, but I was still getting confused, and I think it was my foggy brain rather than any kind of instruction by anyone that was the problem, because everything was so thorough. But then I came across the Closet Case Sew Along on their blog. So they'd done a sew along for the Sienna and done lots of pictures and text, and that just seemed to help me understand it in a way that video didn't. I guess we're all different in the way that we absorb information, and that worked for me this time. It doesn't always work for me. Video is normally better. So I was having a bit of trouble with the vent and creating it, following the instructions, but that was totally my foggy brain. Overall, the instructions are really, really good. I can't fault them. But having the sew along on the Closet Case website was really, really helpful because the pictures were so instructive, if you like. I got really nervous about the top stitching of this because you have to top stitch from the top of the jacket down till you get to the vent, and then you have to pivot, go down there and then down the side. But when you pivot, you have to be sure not to catch the bottom vent in, if you know what I mean. But I did it and it was absolutely fine, to be honest. I think had I done a vent before, I wouldn't have had any trouble whatsoever with this vent. It was just that it was my first time doing a vent, and I would feel completely comfortable in doing another one now. So if you have done a vent, it'll be no problem at all. And if you haven't, just follow the instructions. Check out the sew along on the Closet Case blog and you will be absolutely fine. So the next thing that I created was the facing, and facings are pretty simple. So there were 3 ways you could finish the facing edge, if you like. That's bias binding, which is the route that I went. You could have also folded it under and sewn, or you could serge the edge. It's entirely up to you. I went with bias binding. I wanted it to look that little bit nicer. I had added bias binding at the top of my seam on my back above the vent, and I thought having bias binding on the edge would look nice and really uniform, because I actually used the same fabric as my sleeve pockets, and that's the same fabric as I've used for my facing. And I've created a little hook holder, don't know what you call that, I can't think of the name for it, but it's all out of the same fabric. So my buttons are green as well, and that ties in the mustard and the green and blue all together quite nicely. So for the facing, I created my own bias binding, and that was much better. I do have like shop bought stuff and it just doesn't stretch around curves. So I did go to the effort to make my own. One thing with the facing is once it is attached, the pattern does have you top stitch the facing all the way around down to your pattern, to your fabric, but I didn't want that top stitching on my back, and so I didn't do that. I just did a stitch in a ditch at the shoulder. As you can see, I've got a stitch there, and it's just stitched in the ditch on the outside. So then I attached the collar, and there are really detailed instructions for that. So as long as you follow the instructions, you will be fine with that. It's just that there is some intricate sewing then that you do need to get spot on in order to get the corners as they should be. Now, I didn't get them perfect, but they're pretty good. The next thing I did was to use my simflex ruler in order to mark my buttonholes. So I do have some footage where I show you how I do that. So I will take you over to that now. So this is where my simflex ruler will come in very handy. This was a gift from Megan over at Megan Sullivan. She's got a YouTube channel. Do go and check her out. But I won this. She was doing a giveaway for Vlogmas last year, and I was so pleased to win this because I'd wanted one for ages but couldn't justify the cost. So I'm really happy. So this is what it is. It's like, you know, those old lifts you see in the movies. That's what that reminds me of when they shut the doors. So you see you've got all the spokes here, and this is where you'll mark your button placement. So you could have the buttons really wide apart or not so wide apart. It's really up to you. You need to decide how many buttons you want on your garment. So say you wanted all 8, you would just then stretch that out to the length of your button area, and then it will give you evenly placed buttonholes. Now obviously you can just use a pencil and ruler, but I do think this is more accurate, and for someone like me who does struggle with accuracy, this is fantastic. I'm pretty sure I don't know the full breadth of what this contraption can do, but I don't know if you're going to see it on camera. I'll try and do a close-up, but it's got loads and loads of markings along here, on this bit it also has markings, and at this end. So say you were doing a double-breasted jacket, you've got a marking this side and a marking this side, judging on how wide you want it. And this marking here, this side is a really long marking, so you could place your buttonhole where you wanted it on that row. So I've got my jacket here. That's about where it's going to fold over, so I want my button plackets to be between there and there. I want to get 3 spokes and stretch it out as far as I need it. Now that's as far as it will go. Just want to make sure it is evenly lined up with the edge. Now I'm going to use my chalk marker because this fabric doesn't take well to use in a friction pen, but normally I would take a friction pen, but if I do, it is going to stain my fabric, so I will be using my chalk pen. So I've just drawn a chalk mark inside the hole that the contraption gives me. So I'll take that off, and you can see I've got 3 marks there, and that is where my buttonhole is going to be. Someone did ask me, can you only use this for horizontal button placement? Which is a very good question, because I didn't think about that before I got it. If I wanted a vertical placement, I would still use it in a horizontal way. And when you've got your markings, I would just use the marking as the bottom of the buttonhole and go upwards. You could then just take your ruler and do a line through it if you wanted. Now this jacket has a back vent. I'm also going to be doing buttons on there. Now on this one, I may well do vertical. So my markings are 1 inch wide, so I'm just going to put my ruler at the beginning of the markings and mark at 1/2 inch. So that is then given me a position where I can start my buttonhole from, and my buttonhole will be started from there, and from. So that's my simflex. I've got to go and sew these buttonholes now. Wish me luck. So I hope you found that helpful. The next thing I did was to do the buttonholes. Now, who needs skydiving when you've got buttonholes after spending a week on a jacket? Really? I dread this part of any garment where I've got to do buttonholes because my machines play up so much. I don't know about your machines. Leave a comment below if your machines play up with buttonholes, or let me know if they're good as well, because I would like to know. Because every machine I've ever had seems to have some kind of issues with buttonholes. The machine that I use, which you can barely see in the corner there, up in the corner there, that machine was my machine before I've got my machine that I've got now, and it had to go back in a few times over the buttonholes, and in the end I upgraded, and then the machine I've upgraded to, which cost a pretty penny I have to say, the buttonhole on that plays up now, so I did have to use that machine for the buttonholes. And I did the 3 front buttonholes and completely messed them up, so I had to seam rip the buttonholes and redo them. And I found, even though the machine says it's an automatic buttonholer, I find guiding the fabric through as it's doing the buttonholes a real help, because the feed dogs don't always do the job for you. But once I was feeding it through, or making sure it was feeding through as it was going, the buttonholes were fine. And then I attached my buttons, which are these buttons. So I had 8 of these buttons, which was the exact amount that I needed. I had 3 bigger ones, which are about 1 inch across, and then the rest were little ones. So I put the 3 big ones on the front of the jacket, and the smaller ones on the back vent, and on the sleeves. And those buttons I've had for ages, for years. I bought them because I really liked how they looked, but I never had the right project for them until now. And I just think they go so well with both the mustard fabric and the actual lining fabric. So I'm really pleased to put them with this project. So there's just one more thing that I would like to note on this pattern that I did, and that was the hemming. Now the hemming has you turn it up 1/2 inch and then up another inch and sew down with your sewing machine. The sew along on the Closet Case website has you do it a different way, which I won't go into now. Do go and check it out if you want to know. But it just means that it's nice and neatly underneath your facing. Now I did have to hand stitch my hem. You can't see the stitch in there. You can barely see it there if at all. I had to hand stitch because if I machine stitched, the line of stitching would have gone over the bottom of the pocket and it would have looked really messy. Now I did look at the pattern pieces on the Closet website, well the sample pieces I mean, and they were, the hem was away from the pocket by a couple of millimetres I think. So I think I'm out by a little bit, maybe 1/2 inch. But I was absolutely fine to hand hem this because I just think it gives such a lovely finish to it. And that was the whole process really. It took me the best part of a week to complete, if I'm honest. But that is because I was just doing a little bit each night. This fabric is really heavy and it did wear me out working with it. So I did just do an hour or two each day. And within a week I had my finished garment. No, it wasn't difficult. There were some techniques in there that I hadn't done before and I did need some guidance with those, but there are so many resources available. I wouldn't recommend this pattern to a complete beginner. You will want some sewing under your belt before you attempt this. My next question to myself is, did I enjoy it? Yes, I really did. I went in knowing that this was a complex pattern and it would take time. I didn't go in thinking this was a 2-hour job, and that really helped with my mindset. Now there were days when I wanted to do it more than other days, but I think that's normal with a big project, and I was really pleased to get it finished so that I could wear it. Am I happy with my make? Yes, I am. I was a little concerned that it is a bit boxy for me, and I did seek opinions of Karina, who's really good with giving me feedback on my makes. And because I wear leggings, she felt that it does look good, and I'll go with that. I don't always trust my own opinion. Would I make this again? Yes, I would, and I do intend to. I'd like to make the longer version because you can cinch it in with a belt. With this shorter version, you don't do that. But I would at some point like to attempt the longer version, maybe in a linen as well. That would be really nice, maybe in the summer. I do need a little break from the pattern at the moment because it was a full-on make, but come the summer I think I'll be ready to make a jacket in this with like a medium weight linen. That'd be really, really lovely, I think. Would I do anything differently? Well, I think I would not grade out from a 22 to a 26. I think I would just do a straight 22 or maybe a 22 to 24. I don't think a 26 is needed. I would definitely use a fabric with more drape next time as well. But other than that, I'm really, really happy with my make. Just before we get on to the 6 top tips that I promised you at the start of the video, if you're getting value from this video, if you're enjoying it and you're learning things or you're finding it helpful in any way, do give me a like down below because that tells YouTube that you like my video and they'll then share it out to other people, and that would really help me, so thank you. So let's get on with the 6 top tips. I will whiz through these because I'm aware my video has been quite long so far. So number 1 is to look at the finish measurements when deciding on your size. I did touch on that earlier, but just to say there is a lot of ease in this pattern. If I was to wear this done up, which I probably wouldn't, but just for the benefit of showing you, this is apparently the size I needed, but look, there's so much room there. It's nice because it's not restricted in any way, but I would just, this is partly because I graded out and I haven't got the vent done up at the moment either. Yeah, I would just do a size 22, and that's just because of the ease. So do check out the pattern and look for the ease that you want. But do bear in mind that you will need some ease because it is a jacket. Number 2 on my list is to make a toile. I know this isn't going to be popular with some of you, but it would be really helpful for you to spend just an hour making a quick toile in a fabric that you wouldn't use for anything else, just to have a look at the fit. I attached the collar because I wanted to see where the collar laid, but otherwise I just did the front, the back and one sleeve to give me a good idea. If I hadn't have done that, my dart would have been up here. So I'd really urge you to just make that time and do a toile, especially if you intend to make this more than once, and it could be the difference between you wearing your garment after all your hard work and you not wearing your garment after all your hard work. So my next tip is sewing feet are your friends. It can be quite tempted to just stick with one sewing foot for the whole of your journey, but in this journey I used about 4 different feet. Really helped in different parts of my journey of this jacket. So I would urge you to look into using different feet if you have them available. My 4th step is to take it in baby steps. This is a big project, and if you haven't done a big project before, or you have but you feel daunted by a big project, just take it in steps like I did. Just do an hour or 2 each day, or whatever you can find the time for, even if it's half an hour, or you just do one technique each day, maybe the vent one day, the sleeve another day, the collar another day, etc. That's kind of what I was doing. At the end of it, you will have a finished garment, the same. So you could do it all in one day. If you did nothing else all day, you probably could do it in a day, or you can get on with your life and just do a little bit every day. And after a week or so, you've got that same finished garment. It just took a little bit longer. It's not a race, so just take your time with it. My 5th tip is to don't be afraid to swap up your pattern pieces. So this pattern comes with 2 different patterns essentially, because you've got view A and B, which cinches in at the waist, and you've got view C, which doesn't, and they are based on different pattern pieces. So if I did this again, I would use the plain sleeve with view C rather than the pocketed sleeve, and that's just matching up sleeves from view A and B to pattern C. And you could do vice versa if you wanted the pocket on the other versions, you could do that. Don't be afraid to do that. And my 6th tip is to use a sew along on the Closet Case Patterns website. That was an invaluable resource to me. So if you'd like to make this jacket, there will be a link in the description box below where you can go and find it. It's not an affiliate or anything like that, it's just the basic link. So leave a comment down below and let me know if you like the jacket and whether you would like to make the jacket. I'd be really interested. If so, what fabric would you use? I'm always really keen to interact with you guys down in the comments because I get so many good ideas and I just love chatting to you. That is one of the reasons that I love being on YouTube so much. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, do hit the subscribe button down below. Like the video if you liked it. Leave a comment and share the video if you so wish. All those things really help YouTube to see that this video is worth distributing further afield. I really appreciate all the support you give, and if you would like to go a little bit further and support me financially, I do have a Ko-fi account, and you can find that at ko-fi.com/penguin and pear, where you can leave a non-committed donation, like a one-off donation of anything from £3 or $3 and upwards. As always, I really appreciate the time you've given to watch this video. to thank you, and until next time, have a great day. Happy sewing. Bye for now.